Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, a podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels.
This season, we are exploring Sarah J. Maas's second installment in the Crescent City series.
This is Jac.
And I'm Amy.
This is part 2 of this week's episode where we're discussing the prologue through chapter 2 in House of Sky and Breath. The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author.
This podcast is a discussion shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series and extended universe spoilers may be discussed with or without warning.
Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
If you are enjoying the podcast, check out our Patreon for more exclusive content. You can find us at patreon.com/Book Talk for Book Talk. Chapter 1. As we move into the chapter, we're going to see a lot of things that feel like are a callback to House of Earth and Blood, but in my mind are actually showing how unlike House of Earth and Blood things are currently. So let's talk about the first sentence. The first sentence is, it's a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
How did Earth and Blood start?
It was a Thursday or something like that.
It was a Thursday night.
Yeah.
So we're going to see little moments that remind us of Earth and Blood, but are very different from Earth and Blood.
Good.
Just
love that.
To make that point.
We're back with Bryce.
We are.
I love that you moved your foot.
Sorry.
I was just wondering. You can have it there. You have a sock on. It's okay.
No, it's okay. I should just...
No, I consent to your foot being on my chair with a sock.
Thank you for your consent.
Look at this. I can touch it. No, I didn't like it. So we're back with Bryce, and we're at Juniper's debut. And SJM wants us to know that we are at a nice, peaceful start to everything. Quote, "Yet even with the crowd, an air of quiet reverence and serenity filled the space as if it were a temple." We're getting this like false sense of serenity and peace and beauty as it just descends. And like I mentioned before, there's a lot of like God imagery, and we're going to get a lot of religious imagery, and that's going to be what we're getting throughout this for like while they're in this little lobby area. Right away, we get the statue of Chthona, the earth goddess, naked and awaiting the embrace of her lover Solus. And then I was really curious about like what was to come with all of these gods that we're highlighting in this one. So I was like, if book 1 Bryce was Luna, I wonder if there's gonna be more of a Chthona connection here with her and Hunt. Like, Bryce wasn't with Hunt like that for book 1. Now she is. And, maybe we know there was a connection between Ember and Randall representing Kothona and Solace.
Yeah.
So, you know, I there's a lot of God-like connection. So,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see.
That's a great point.
Thank you.
Now, like Earth and Blood, Sky and Breath starts with Bryce in the presence of her friends. So at the start of Earth and Blood, she was with Danica, she was with the Pack of Devils, she went out dancing with Fury and Juniper. Here, she's with Hunt, Ember, and Randall.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do want to point out, though, the difference, because in Earth and Blood, in the very first couple of scenes, Bryce cancels on her mother, tells her she can't come out to visit her. Right, because she's worried about Philip Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going on a date with Reed Redner.
Yeah.
Was it Reed? Yeah, Reed.
Yeah.
So it's a nice 180 that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Ember and Randall get to come out. They're not canceled upon. And Bryce is with Hunt instead of Reed.
And it's a totally peaceful experience without her mom harping on her or anything.
Right, right. But it also, despite the harping on her that does take place, there is this, like you said, sense of peace and contentment, which is great. We know SJM doesn't disrupt that kind of stuff. Things get to stay great.
Yeah, this is actually going to be her most happy, cozy book ever.
Right.
So we're seeing Bryce in a post-CC1 world, and we're seeing the trauma that she has to deal with, but not just the trauma she has to deal with, but like other people's trauma as well. It's not just contained to her. And people approach her or stare at her. Quote, the first few times had been overwhelming, unnerving. People coming up to her and sobbing with gratitude. Now they just stared. And that's really hard to have to take on. Like, we get an understanding of like how much more Bryce is dealing with emotionally. And it reminds me a lot of what Farah described after the attack of Valaris, where people would just like come up to her and start crying and she didn't know what to do with it and stuff. And, or even Under the Mountain, people coming up to her. And I just feel like that's a level of trauma that we don't get in characters or in humanity, you know? Like, no one's coming up to anyone thanking them like that.
Yeah. I think what Bryce is struggling with here, not just with the attention and not what to do with people's own trauma, is she got to fly under the radar as a human, right? She cloaked herself in her humanity, just like Sophie did in the prologue. However, now she's a spectacle. She doesn't get to disguise herself with her humanity. Everyone can see the Starborn-ness about her.
Right. She's got a scar right in her boobies.
Right. She's been announced as a princess of the Fae. Quote, the various ancient statues of the gods flanking the long lobby watched her. To me, that's almost metaphor for the Asteri.
Yeah.
The gods of their world are watching her. And some of the shifters are, quote, blatantly ogled her. Bryce doesn't like being in the spotlight. Like, she likes to be the center of attention for other reasons.
Yeah, but not spotlight.
But not this.
Yeah.
And I think that's really going to be reflected in her attitude throughout the first part of the book. And we're going to start to see that change eventually.
Yeah. Shout out to Spicy Amber and for literally not taking shit from anyone and just letting them all stare at her daughter and even just saying like, well, if you want to look at it, take a picture, charge you, last longer. Like, she just goes all out for her daughter. But I'm going to make a case that maybe it's not all for Bryce. You know, maybe it's not just for her. So the second god we get is Ogenis, rising from the waves, the goddess's full breasts peaked and arms upraised. And I feel like that's, again, another thing of, like, Bryce's story to come. So if Kothona and Solace are Bryce and Hunt, here our focus is on just Bryce and just Hunt. And, you know, like, other than, like, full breasts, meaning Bryce and stuff. But, like, there's something about almost being, like, this force to be reckoned with and coming into their own power.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, just want to, just maybe things to consider.
It also made me think about the fact that Bryce does spend time underwater with the House of Many Waters, both in this book and Flame and Shadow.
Yep.
Just putting that out there.
I think that's a great point. And probably the most famous of statues that we get here that we've all referenced and has made us absolutely feral is this one. Quote, A powerful fey male stood poised above an anvil, hammer raised skyward in one fist, lightning crackling from the skies, filling the hammer and flowing down towards the object of the hammer's intended blow, a sword. And this is the one that we know is supposed to look like Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could this have literally just meant, like, this is Hunt, Bryce is the sword, he's helping power up the sword. That he is, that's like literally his job, right?
Yeah.
He's supposed to electrocute her into strength.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's helping her wield her as a sword type thing. And we know there's another thing to support it is because the statue is called Making of the Sword. We know she gets the sword at the end, and it's used in the ancient old Fae.
Yeah, I love that interpretation.
And it could literally have just meant that.
Oh, okay.
Back in the day before CC3 came out, was convinced that was like, okay, so this is actually, that means Hunt is Lyrian, and here are the clues because he looks like this, so then therefore, like, maybe his ancestors this, or maybe he's the reincarnation. Like, this section, this description ruined a lot of lives.
Oh, I know. I had the same theories.
Yeah. So all of this to mean, like, when I was like reading, I'm like, so great, you're just saying that this is literally it. Like, that's all you gave me was what you wrote.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you know what else she wrote? Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
She wrote that the statue was created by an unknown sculptor in 125 VE.
Oh, we're back, baby.
We're back with some angel numbers. I did look up Hebrew numbers as well, and I couldn't find anything for 125. But for angel numbers, 125, quote, symbolizes significant life changes, adaptability, and making important decisions that align with your true self and life purpose. It serves as an encouragement from the universe or your guardian angels to embrace change with optimism and trust that these changes will bring about positive outcomes. Sorry, Hunt. He doesn't like change. He doesn't like the change that's about to come.
No. It's just, okay, I'm still sad about this. So, like, it's 125 years after
the Vanir have come to this planet.
Yeah, which means there's probably still some memory.
Oh, yeah.
Of Prithian.
Yeah. Or wherever Throne of Glass is.
Yeah. It just hurts my feelings.
I'm sorry.
SJM did this to us.
She did.
Like, I don't think Taylor has even hurt me as bad.
Sorry.
Yeah. I just want SJM to know. That was Swift. Taylor Swift. In case everyone's like, wow, did Jac date someone recently? No.
Named Taylor.
No, she did not. The next image we get is from Hell's armies arriving into Midgard. Quote, the depiction of winged demons swooping down from the skies upon a terrestrial army gathered on the plains below. Knowing that this is propaganda art and knowing what the truth is actually depicting and knowing what is actually happening and the fact that, like, the Asteri are considered terrestrial armies. What's outside? Outer space. What are they? Aliens. Terrestrial armies.
Yeah. You know, I didn't think I was going to bring it back to World War II, but I'm going to bring it back to World War II.
Historian, let's do it.
This reminds me of Nazi propaganda.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because they had propaganda come out weekly about what other countries were doing in other parts of the world and how, you know, Nazi Germany was doing great things.
Yep.
And showing basically lies all the time to their people.
Yeah.
It's no different than
the same.
The Asteri are using propaganda to fuel a false narrative so that they can get compliance out of their people. Absolutely.
Which is sad.
Yeah.
It's sad.
And there's not enough knowledge to combat it.
Because it's been 15,000 years.
Right.
Which, like, I am a big fan of that. Like, it's been a long ass time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a while.
And it also causes moments of PTSD for Bryce, right? Because it is a description for her of what she experienced when Hell's...
Yeah.
Not Hell's armies, but when Hell's pets came into Midgard.
Hell's pets. I have no... It's just a cool name, Hell's pets. We find out more of what's going on with Bryce and what she's been going through. And we learned that Bryce can't talk to her mom without her mom crying. So therefore, she doesn't bring it up to her mom, which is very unfortunate because, like, one, her mom should be able to cry with her. You know, like, I think there's something about, and I get this, like, when my dad died, I didn't want to talk about it with my mom because then she would cry and I didn't want her to cry.
Yeah.
Versus, I think now learning about it and, you know, after my grandparents died, being able to cry with someone.
Yeah.
And being able to do that together. So I feel like that's like an example of Bryce still growing up in many ways where it's like, you know, and not everyone learns that. I think that, you know, we're too busy trying to be strong many times when crying with someone is really healing. And Bryce is not about healing right now.
No.
Quote, "It was easier," Bryce had realized, to not bring it up, to let herself talk it out with Hunt or sweat it out with Madame Kira's dance classes twice a week. Baby steps towards being ready for actual talk therapy. I said her name right?
You said Kira, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bryce is looking for some forms of help. Like, she is talking about it with Hunt and she trusts Hunt. She's gone back to dancing. And from an author perspective and a reader, I recognize that finding a peaceful balance for mental health is super important, right? You need to do all the above. You can't just do therapy. You can't just do physical stuff. You can't just have a friend to talk to. Like, it's a combo of all three. But I kind of hate when authors sort of dismiss it a little bit. Like, they'll be like, okay, I danced a lot. It's cool, guys. I'm healed now. I can figure it out. I've got this covered. And I don't want to say like there's one cure to everyone.
Yeah.
But it's just like it would have. I don't think it would have hurt anything if we had been like Bryce had gone to a few sessions, realized she wasn't ready yet.
Yeah. Because it can be hard to start therapy. Everyone's resistant. Trust me. We all go through that. I see what you're saying. You know, my therapists and my psychiatrists have all at one point or another said you really need to be exercising more because it will help release endorphins or dopamine or serotonin or whatever you need. Yep. And so we're not diminishing the dancing. Yes. We're saying dancing is not enough.
Yeah. And I think it's like maybe because I've like had enough people in my life when I've talked to them, I've been like, you know, therapy is a good option. And they'll be like, well, I talk about it with others. I'm like, yeah, that's not the same. Yeah. Like it's all of the above. Like I talk about things with you. I talk about it with other friends. I work out occasionally, you know, like there's things that happen, but yeah, big fan. I'm just a big fan of therapy.
I am too. And as someone who gives free therapy often in the workplace, it's not enough.
It's not.
And it's also not my job.
Yeah. You're not paying for that. Charging for it, you should.
Please see a licensed professional.
Absolutely.
I want to go back to Ember really fast because I appreciate your perspective on this. I have a very different perspective.
Oh, let's hear it.
Because of my own personal experience.
Yeah.
So on top of what Bryce is dealing with her PTSD, which she's not managing very well, right? Because she's not doing all the things she could be doing to manage it. Quote, the weight of all her mother's emotions on top of all of hers. My note, woof.
Yeah.
And I know how hard that is to take on somebody else's emotions when you're not done processing your own emotions about the fact. Like, Ember needs to see a therapist too.
She should
not be using her daughter to take out her emotions. I mean, and I love my mother, but when my parents got divorced, I had my own emotions about it.
Yeah.
I didn't need all this other stuff that I got from my parents in the process.
Fair.
Because obviously they were trying to get over it and heal and whatnot, but I shouldn't have been part of that process.
100%. And it makes sense where you don't want to, you know, it's all nuance and all these things. And I think the parents aspect is like hard too, because it's like, you know, I think as children, and maybe this is like a you and me thing, maybe this is a Bryce thing, but there's something of like wanting to take care of our parents. Yeah. That's like you innately just kind of like want to be there for them. That like there's that aspect of like, shit, now I have to take care of them. It's unfortunate, but yeah, great. It's another great perspective. It is just everyone needs therapy. That's
everyone.
I think I'm gonna get a new therapist. I'm not a fan of this new one.
Then ditch her.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to leave that in. I just want people to know. You can like find, like I started a new therapist and I'm not vibing with her. So I think I'm going to get a new one. So titles are important. We've talked about this in this book. We're talking about it in the last book and we're going to just keep talking about it forever. Titles are important. And Bryce is working through her title of princess and the fact that she's now Vanir post-drop, right? Mm-hmm. After her mom calls her a princess, and her mom says it as an insult too. Like her mom talk about like issues that she hasn't worked with. It's not like Ember's being here, being like a supportive parent. Like Ember's here being like, I have issues and I want to take it out on you. Yep. Bryce thinks, quote, she lost count of how often she told her mom she wasn't a princess, didn't want to be. And the Autumn King sure as shit didn't want her to be either. Like, Ember let me down. Ember let me down in this book. Yeah. Ember is a mother with baggage. Yeah. I do find this moment ironic, and I think SJM spends a lot of time on it because Bryce flips the script on this one later in the book. Yeah. And we have to see that journey to why she's willing to do that. So we have to start from a strong point of like she's very against the princess title, and she hates that her mother is talking about her using it to get a job, etc. So I just want to put that out there. Oh, fair. It's like it's laying the groundwork for what's going to change. Yep. And so like Ember is struggling with the new princess title for Bryce as well. You know, she's like we said, she's going through her own issues, and I think there's a lot more to it with Ember than what SJM is saying to us, but like we can infer it. Because Bryce is a princess and Vanir, and the further she becomes a princess, which is like a fae thing, the less human she becomes. Right. And the less her daughter, like she's becoming less and less her daughter. When it's like she's not becoming less her daughter, you know, it's just like these are things that she's struggling, and she's essentially like losing Bryce to the Autumn King, which that was her abuser. Right. That was the person who hurt her, who she's been running from her entire life. Right. And I get why Ember is taking it personally. However, back off. Your issues, work through them. Don't need to take it out on her. Yeah. And here's an example of that. Quote, what do you want me to say? That'll move back home to Nidaros and pretend to be normal? That's Bryce. And then Ember responds, what's so bad about being normal? And it's frustrating because like normal is human right now. Yeah. Like we've already established where they live as a human area. Yeah. So Ember is pushing Bryce to not be normal, but to be human. And even though Bryce is leaning into humanity, right? Like she still wants to be human. She still embraces her human heart, but her job is at the Fate Archives and she likes it. She admits that she really enjoys her time there. Yeah. And like you said, she'll eventually embrace the princess title and she'll embrace being a Vanir and princess in her own way. Yeah. But right now I can see her being pulled on both sides. Yeah. I can too. And I think what I find really infuriating is that Ember is making Bryce's trauma about herself. Yes. Right? And that's, and a lot of people are guilty of that, not just parents. It can be about, friends can do this to each other, siblings can do this to each other, loved ones, spouses can do this to each other. And we just so happen to see it in Ember. Yeah. And I feel empathy, but I also feel a great amount of annoyance with Ember because she's supposed to be the adult in this relationship. And she's had 25 years for therapy. Yes. And she hasn't worked through her shit. It's like therapy is available in this world. Yeah. In this Lunathion world. Yeah. Go do it. Yeah. So that's all I have to say about that because I just get angry. Yeah. You know what's like the fun thing about going into your 30s, getting older, is that all the times you might have heard or been implied you'll understand when you're older. It's like, I am older, which means I get to judge freely. Yeah, which means I get to call you out for your shit. And be like, oh, you mean this bad choice you made when you were my age? Yeah. Look at that. I don't have to make that bad choice. Yeah. I learned from your bad choices. Yeah, you don't get to say, I'll learn when I'm older. You got told that a lot? Not really. I think it was just more... It's funny enough because I had more of a perspective of like things I didn't understand with my family and
Yeah.
choices that, you know, whether it's my mom or other adults in my life made.
Mm-hmm.
And no one ever really necessarily said you'll understand when you're older, but there was like it was implied that like things are different, you know, there's dynamics that aren't, you know, like wait a like, you know, like you'll get it later. And now I'm like, it's later.
Yeah.
Wow. Therapy was around then too.
Yeah. Like you could have done a lot of work between now and then.
And that's not a direct call to my mom. I just want people to know.
You can cut that out.
No, I'm going to keep that in, but listeners do reach out to us and they talk about their own experience. So I'm fine sharing some of these things, but yeah, it's not a direct thing to my mom. I think it's just like a lot of life happens and we take it in, and it's okay to try to do better, and it's okay to say that past generations could have done better.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Obviously, I love my parents.
Yeah.
I think they did a lot right by me. I also think they made a lot of mistakes.
Absolutely.
And I'm willing to say that to their faces.
Yeah, and the fun part of being older is be able to say, yeah, it was a mistake.
Yeah.
You don't get to blame me not knowing.
Yeah. And if I made you feel guilty, good.
Yeah.
I had to suffer with that trauma.
Yeah, I get it.
And it's not vindictive. It's just
It just is.
It just is.
And it's okay because we find out in therapy and we get to have those moments.
And it doesn't stop us from loving them.
No. You can still love someone, and it's the duality of selves. It's the duality of individuals, and being able to say both things can be true at once.
Yeah. So while we're at the CCB Ballet, CCB,
BBC.
I don't remember.
There are letters involved.
There are letters. We get the first glimpse of Bryce's star in the middle of her chest in this new reality. It was, quote, like an old scar. The white mark stood out starkly against her freckled golden tan skin. I love the visual of the scar because the scar is a physical manifestation of her trauma. It is a spectacle when contrasted against her skin, right? It's white where her skin is a golden tan. Just like Bryce has become her own spectacle, the veneer against what used to be her human self. So for me, the scar visually represents what Bryce is feeling as well in this moment of like, ugh, I can't hide anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the overwhelming emotions that just you can only suppress for so long.
Yeah. Now, Bryce alters her behavior because of this new reality. She wears a glass and she wears a hat and sunglasses when she goes out, which is so unlike the carefree Bryce who used to go running all the time with her headphones in.
I mean, wearing whatever she wanted to wear.
Yeah. Quote, everyone these days stared. She really fucking hated it. Bryce didn't want to tell her mom any of that. You know, Bryce doesn't want to tell people a lot of things.
Yeah.
Including Hunt. She keeps a lot to herself, just like Sophie. And again, there's that parallel. And it's not that different from Danica either.
Right. It's talk about like one of those, like the follow-up book, right? The trauma, like everyone has trauma. No one wants to talk about it.
Yep. Such is life. Shout out to the Pegasus. All the Pegasi.
Pegasi. Flying around, you know, getting ready for that third book breakout. So this is the book where Bryce and Hunt officially become mates, right? SGM starts throwing some clues around. Quote, Bryce had developed a keen awareness of Hunt's presence, like scenting lightning on the wind. He had only to enter a room and she'd know if he was there by that surge of power in her body. Like her magic, her very blood answered to his. So like this is the fact that they're literally made to be with each other, like to power one another. But then we also have like the mate aspect of everything.
Oh, I do like the point. I didn't think about the fact that Hunt was literally made for Bryce.
Yeah. Because he's like charging up, like she even says my magic is answering to his. Yeah.
And she can smell his lightning, which is what charges her. Amazing.
What do you think lightning smells like?
It smells like rain in the desert. You know that smell right before it rains in Arizona? That's what lightning smells like to me.
I think it smells like one of those things they put in your car after it's been washed.
Which one?
I don't know. The one that smells like lightning. The blue one?
It's like cool ice or
something. Cool ice. Yeah, the blue one. I want to point out how appearances and the way that they dress shows a lot, and that men's fashion can be a statement too. The fact that Hunt has his hair cut and slicked back Why? Because he wants to proudly show off that he doesn't have a crown on his forehead anymore.
It's a great point.
Yeah. It's like, men get to use fashion as a way to express themselves too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like he went from the emo boy with the black greasy long hair to being a jock that just like, yeah, I am beautiful and I know it.
Yeah. I mean, he was like emo jock before.
Yeah.
Now he's
horny jock.
Yeah. For a second, I thought you said horny Jacques.
Jacques.
Like me. It's horny Jacques.
I'm excited to talk about the first use of alcohol here.
Yes. And
Hunt's role with the poison testing pill.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, Bryce is drinking again, and that's very different from the Bryce. So it's the same as the Bryce at the start of Earth and Blood, but also not the same, right?
Absolutely.
Because after Danica's death, Bryce used sobriety as a punishment because she was drunk when Danica died. Now that Bryce has had closure around Danica's death, Bryce feels powerful enough to drink without, going overboard.
Yeah.
Champagne is provided by Juniper, and it's a celebratory gift, a symbol of peace and contentment. And you know what? They're just here to enjoy the ballet.
You're going to have fun.
And here comes Hunt swooping in with his pill. And it really pisses Bryce off because she's like, you've ruined the champagne. But what it really symbolizes is his overbearing need to protect her at all times. He doesn't ask permission.
He just does it.
He just does it.
Yeah.
He doesn't ask her like, hey, slow down. Let's see if this is safe.
Mm-hmm.
He just presumes. You're not going to think about this, and I'm going to test it.
As a person who loves consent, I do have to say, he also knows her well enough that if he were to be like, hey, so look, we have to make sure that there's nothing in this drink. She would have been like, down it. Pretty sure it's fine now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So like, even though he's taking that choice away from her and he's being overprotective, it's like, or he's being reasonable protective.
Wow.
I'm shocked with me too.
What we're seeing here, though, in my mind, is the start of what's going to be a very long battle of wills between Bryce and Hunt. And this is just a very small taste of what that's going to be. Hunt obviously loves and respects Bryce as his equal, but he doesn't trust her with her own safety.
Yeah.
And that's how we're seeing him act. The pill and his use of it is emblematic of that mistrust.
Yeah. It's also, I'm going to touch on it later, and I think this is going to be a big theme that I'm going to talk about in this book, is that Hunt is going to feel emasculated by Bryce, and he never says those words. He never tells her, I feel like less of a man because of you. But it is very clear there. Yeah. He wants to be the one protector. He wants to be the one to be the provider and all of these things for her, right? And she continues to save him. She continues to take care of herself. And it hurts him because the things that he's struggling with is having to watch her almost die over and over at the end of CC1. So he's really, really struggling with it. And this is just like one of the clues that we're getting early on.
Yeah.
That he's going to... Everything he's doing, I think, is reasonable. He should talk to her about it, of course. Like, you don't get to put pills in someone's drink ever.
Yeah.
That's not okay. But at the same, and I think that like the fact that it's a pill in her drink is meant to make us feel icky.
Right. Because what if it's a date rape drug?
Like, and we know he's not date raping her. We know it's not,
but that's what it looks like.
Exactly. And it feels icky. So it's like it's not like he's putting a strip of paper to test it. I think SJM chose a pill on purpose because we don't walk away feeling good about it. It's not like I'm going to put this little tiny piece of paper, it turns blue, it's bad or fine or something like that. Yeah.
Make her wear nail polish that changes color.
Holy shit, that's genius. Wait a minute.
I think it exists.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is a nail polish that exists that if you dip your finger into a drink, it will tell you if you've been roofied or not.
What? All right. That blew my mind. Well,
now I'm like, did I make this up? Did I read it in a book?
Let me look it up. Here, you use my phone. Wait, hold on. Why am I giving it to you?
I can look.
Either you're a genius, you came up with $1 billion idea, or you did hear it. Let's see. Backlash against polish to detect date rape. Okay, so it feels like it's like there's some stuff about it, whether it's accurate or not.
It exists, but it might not be a good thing.
No, but like we should really work on that. I feel like science isn't too hard to figure that shit out.
I'm sure there are female scientists out there who can make this happen.
I'm sure those female scientists are not getting the grants they deserve.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah. All right, so happier news. Let's move into that. Let's get into Bryce and Hunt's dynamic with their relationship. Quote, "It was a stupid bargain she made with Hunt that rather than diving right into bed, they wait until winter solstice to act on their desires, spend the summer and autumn getting to know each other without the burdens of psychopathic archangels and demons on the prowl." It's so funny because I feel like this is the kind of thing that we talked about this, Amy, like if this was not done, we would shit on it so hard, being like, so what, you're just going to jump in a relationship? You don't even want to get to know them. But like now that we're doing that, I'm like, well, that just seems silly. But I think what's interesting about this choice, though, it's not like they said, hey, let's be together, but no sex. They said, we're going to pretend like we're not together, but not together. Where, I think that's a little bit of the redonkulousness of it all, but it's also meant to add sexually charged high stakes to this book.
Right. It definitely adds some sexual tension. But I think if you think back to Earth and Blood, they really did start out as friends.
I agree.
And
it happened quickly. Like,
yeah,
Bryce is doing the thing that I would want any woman to do.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you started off as friends with Hunt, but it was also only like a month.
Yeah.
Or maybe 2 if I want to feel generous.
Yeah.
And you're going to say that you love him, move in with him, and he's going to be it forever. Like, we would shit on that so hard.
Yeah.
And the fact that they do live with each other and all that stuff, like, it is hard to do that. So, like, I get it. It's fine. But on a, like, critical level writing point of view, I think SJM is doing this to, make there be romantic tension.
Yeah, absolutely. And also avoid the big secret that's revealed when they do have sex.
Right. And additionally, though, we do also see that Bryce is punishing herself. And we'll get into that in the next chapter when Hunt gives his perspective. Additionally, I do want to point out that Bryce is imitating her mom and Randall. Quote, "It had been nearly a year before they'd made things official, and they turned out pretty damn well." And again, we know that Bryce is struggling to be normal and to be human. And I feel like there's something about getting to know each other is very human.
Yeah.
Versus rushing into it, letting the instinct take over. It's because they're mates and letting the bond take over. And that becomes more Vanir than human.
Right. And that would be her accepting her Vanir side.
Exactly. So I feel like her relationship with Hunt is more evidence of her struggle with humanity, with her humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. I also want to say, going back to your point about it emulating Ember and Randall, about Bryce, the way Bryce and Hunt are treating their relationship is Bryce trying to emulate Ember and Randall. Ember and Randall are kind of the only loving relationship that Bryce idolizes.
Yeah.
And if she wants to emulate them, if she wants her relationship with Hunt to work out the way Ember's and Randall's works out, it tells you the depth of how much she cares about Hunt.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's important to her that it does work out.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to just kind of dip back where if book 1, Ember and Randall were associated with Chthona and Solus, we know that they're kind of mimicking them. I feel like future me is going to make some good points. I'm laying groundwork for future me. Now let's look at some sex. It's power. It's vulnerability. Both things that Bryce is struggling with. So things that like she could be, they could be having sex left and right and center, but that would require a lot from her. And it's also going to be something that when they have sex, it's going to be soul shattering.
Yeah.
And she knows it.
Yeah.
She knows what's going to come.
Talking about soul shattering.
Yeah.
Remember how I said the number 125 was about change and be true to oneself? We get another 125, but it's really, really subtle.
This is like when on TikTok when we're all trying to figure out when Taylor Swift is going to announce Reputation.
But this one's genuine.
Okay.
And maybe it's coincidence, but I'm going to guess not. Because SJM had to pick. Okay, she picked Winter Solstice. And how far away is winter solstice? She could have picked any amount of time. She picked 4 months and 3 days. Now we know they have the same months and days of the week as we do.
I'm looking at your little
4 months is 30 plus 31 plus 30 plus 31, and 3 days is 125. Weird.
Sound like a Taylor Swift truther. I'll lend you my clown makeup. No, I think it's a good idea. It's a good point out. I didn't mean that you're a clown.
No,
I meant
I know.
I'm a clown for
I
Taylor.
know.
But it's curious.
It is curious.
It's curious.
Curious. As Jac has mentioned, titles are going to be used a lot throughout this book. We get a few here. Bryce is the Starborn princess, and she likes to make fun of that title and give it new spins every now and then. She doesn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because that is going to change throughout this book and then House of Flame and Shadow. And we have to call it out here so that we remember the journey. So she makes fun of her title. Don't forget that. Hunt, in her mind, is a fallen angel, capital F, capital A, and the Umbra Mortis. And she doesn't mind that he has these titles.
Yeah.
They define him.
Yep.
In ways that she is comfortable with. She's not comfortable with the way titles define her.
Yep.
And that's something she's going to have to grow into. Now, before we end this chapter, I want to talk about body language.
Okay.
Before Bryce's star flares while they're in the box at the ballet, Bryce and Hunt are teasing each other with sexually.
Yeah. Sexually teasing.
Sexually teasing. Quote, Hunt laughed, sliding an arm along the back of her chair, fingers tingling in her unbound hair. He seemed contented, assured of his place there.
It's so hot.
It's so hot. Then when the star flares and everyone's looking at Bryce and she can't cover it with her own hands, she's mortified. Quote, Hunt slid a warm, dry hand over her scar, fingers grazing her breasts. Also hot. These touches are sexual. They are possessive. And Bryce likes them, which means they're okay.
Yeah.
Because if she didn't like them, they would not be okay.
Yep.
And what that's telling me is that she likes and desires companionship and protection from Hunt. Unfortunately, it's not going to be to the same extent that Hunt wants to give it.
Yeah. They're gonna have some bumps in the road.
They really, really are.
It also shows that she has a really long torso. I have a short torso. Like my chest to neck ratio from boob. So my boobs land pretty high. So if I had the star, it wouldn't be like here. It'd be pretty up here. I don't have much room here.
Well, I think it's between her breasts. It's really a shame we're not recording video.
I just like parted my boobs like the Red Sea.
Because the dress is described as being cutting below her breasts.
Yeah.
So that you can see the star.
It just, okay. It's hot, but it's awkward.
Yeah, it's very awkward.
Yeah.
But
just
still
saying.
hot.
Yeah, it's still hot. How are her boobs not sweaty?
I'm sure there's magic involved.
God.
Magical deodorant.
Magical boob deodorant. Amy, what's that?
An ad break.
We'll be right back.
Nice. Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
Chronic migraine is 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for adults with migraine with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It prevents, on average, 8 to 9 headache days a month versus 6 to 7 for placebo.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Ask your doctor and visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
While Bryce feels uncomfortable with everyone staring, Hunt reassures her, quote, "They won't fuck with us." An edge laced his smile, a reminder to everyone watching. He wasn't only Hunt Athalar, he was also the Umbra Mortis, the shadow of death. Like I was saying, I'm having multiple thoughts. Let me go to those multiple thoughts. Going back to what you're saying, Hunt kind of embraces his Umbra Mortisness a little bit here, which is interesting because he resented that title.
Yeah.
But it's the title that can get him to protect Bryce.
Right.
And this is just like, he's going to lean into a side of himself that he doesn't like.
Yeah.
In order to try to protect her.
Right. And he does that in Flame and Shadow as well.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about this. For both of them, they're going to don their titles when it's convenient for them.
Yeah.
When it's a tool they can use and control. When it's a tool, no longer something they can use and control, and it instead controls them, that's when they don't want it.
I was talking about that last night. People can get an idea of when we recorded this, but the last game that Chile was playing for Copa America, and we were playing against Canada. I was talking to some people there. I was like, well, how did America do? How did the States do? And they lost against Panama. They did a bad job. But I was like, I'm American when America's winning, and I'm Chilean when Chile's winning. So I get it, choosing your multiple roles.
Yeah. Although Hunt is able to assist Bryce, and ultimately he's able to make her laugh and feel more comfortable, Bryce struggles with the fact that this star and its light is uncontrollable, and it brings attention to her. Because I think what it's doing is bringing attention to the fact that she's human, and her lack of control is viewed as weakness. Because if she was Fae, she would have been able to do this all along. Yeah. Right? This situation brings attention that makes her feel unworthy. As a Vanir, right? Which is why she's struggling with the Vanir, but she can't go back to being a human because that's equally unworthy.
Yeah. So there's nothing good for her.
No, she's between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. We have now entered chapter 2. Bryce and Hunt are like, party time. We are off to Ruhn, Dannon, Crown Prince of the Balbaran Fae. He's throwing a house party. He's such a frat boy.
He is such a frat boy. For an emo boy, he is such a frat boy.
He's such a bro. And like, he's one of those guys on his dating profile that it's like, okay, you're almost 40 and you put, are you going to have kids? I don't know. What are you looking for in a relationship? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I love Ruhn, but I don't know. I'm just, no, I'm pissed. He resembles dating too much.
Yeah, but again, SJM is setting us up to see where Ruhn is now for him to have a very difficult journey.
Yeah, that's my note.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't read your note.
It's okay. No, it's true. Like, but like, that's the, like, he regressed. He regressed. Like, him and his friends, they all regressed from the first book, because at the end of the first book, they've all matured up, they've all grown, right, and gone through shit. But now, with all this, like, you know, you kind of need him to regress a little bit so that he can grow. So yeah,
and maybe that's his trauma response.
It could be, yeah.
Like, he almost saw his, you know,
his sister die.
Yeah, saw his sister die. You know, couldn't get to his sister before she died.
Yeah, he has a lot of trauma. So yeah, this is fair. This could be his way of handling it.
Yeah. Party more.
Party hardy.
Which I will not be mad about in the next chapter.
No, I'm not. He's going to know a few things.
What I like about this party that I think I can only see now that I've read House of Flame and Shadow is the fact that I think it foreshadows what the future of Lunathion is. Quote, Fae and shifters and people of all houses drank and danced and talked. You know, we're seeing a microcosm of what Bryce strives for in Flame and Shadow, of all people, regardless of race, being one people.
Being stupid together.
Being stupid together.
Yeah.
And the only place you can see that is
with
Ruhn's apartment. So it makes sense to me, because this is the lifestyle Ruhn has always been living.
Oh, yeah. And he's in a house, by the way, not an apartment.
A house. I apologize.
It
is a house.
Yes.
It is a rundown house.
It's a run-down house.
Ruhn supports Bryce in Flame and Shadow and her goals because he's been living with other races as one people for a long time. He doesn't believe in the systems that make his father powerful. And, you know, he might have had a thing against angels at one point, but even Hunt has broken that down for him.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
He's a soft boy.
He is a soft boy.
So at Ruhn's party, Bryce and Hunt are experiencing a lot more scrutiny. And, quote, the crowd parted for them, some even backing away. Bryce stiffened, but Hunt didn't halt his easy pace. And this is from Bryce's point of view. And I think that's really important because we are seeing that Hunt is more comfortable, and then that meaning, aka, he's more equipped for this situation. And I think that's going to dictate some of her actions later. Right now, and I'll get into it more, but it's almost like each of them are like, oh, wow, they're really equipped. They're doing things right. And the other one's like, they're admiring the other person of like, oh, they're more advanced than me, they're higher up, or, you know, I need to be at their level, which is just going to be back and forth of pushing each other away.
Yeah. Instead of recognizing that both are struggling.
Yeah.
In this moment of observing that Hunt is so comfortable in this situation as the Umbra Mortis, as people staring at him, Bryce also acknowledges that she likes Hunt in his normal clothes over the fanciness of the ballet. Quote, she preferred that hat to the fancy suit, actually. We're going to see Hunt think the same thing about Bryce and her shorts, and Jac, you're going to talk about that from the feminist lens later. But for me, from the Marxist lens, the ballet and the clothes that they wore there represented the lifestyle of the aristocracy. And yeah, Bryce and Hunt can clean themselves up and kind of fit in, but they prefer their normalness. They prefer the simplicity of things like baseball hats and short shorts. And they are of the people. And I think that really translates to Bryce's goals in Flame and Shadow.
Yep. Agreed. There's a moment at the party I never noticed, and I think it shows a lot in this moment. Quote, to her shock, Hunt didn't protest when a reveling air sprite floated past, crowning him and Bryce with glow stick necklaces made from first light. Bryce removed the plastic tube of light and looped it into a bracelet snaking up her arm. Hunt left his hanging over his chest, the light casting the deep muscles of his pectorals and shoulder in stark relief. Now, the crowning part was really interesting for me because it was like, again, crowning like royalty. And
foreshadowing them.
Which is what will happen in the third book, where Bryce is going to be crowned
queen, and Hunt is going to be leader of all of the archangels or all of the angels. And both of them pass up this opportunity, right? Bryce turns down being queen. She abolishes it, while Hunt gives up not being.
He doesn't want to be the commander.
Commander, thank you. I was like, what am I thinking? Now, what do they do with it? This is the part that I love. Bryce puts it on her arm to snake up her arm. I feel like this is a clue that she's going to be working with the Viper Queen, Snake, and it's almost like she's going to emulate her, which she kind of does.
She kind of does.
And Hunt, on the other hand, puts it on his chest. What did we just see? Bryce's glowing star, just the chapter before, and now he has something glowing at his chest. And I think that's going to show that he's going to try to emulate Bryce. He's trying to keep up with her.
Yeah.
In this book.
I like that.
Thank you.
Remember how I said this set of chapters is going to be similar but different to Earth and Blood?
Yep.
At the Raven in Earth and Blood, both before and after Danica's death, Bryce sees groups of people celebrating drop parties with glow sticks made of first light.
Yeah.
And unlike those times, Bryce and Hunt are participating. And to me, that shows growth past the memories that were holding them back in the first book.
I love that. I love it. We switch over to Hunt's point of view, and we see him admiring Bryce just like she did with him. Bryce had admired, like you were saying, the way he was dressing, like the way he dressed, and the way that he showed up to this party, which is in a black tank top and a backward baseball cap. And this is like such a bro.
So bro here. Even if like he could pull it off with all of his muscles, it would be too much for me. I'm like, no, thank you, sir. Put a shirt on. Yeah. And
then you have Bryce, who Hunt admires having, really curves, like a lot of, nice ass, toned legs, long hair, white shorts. And you're getting a lot of like femininity behind that. And while Bryce considers Hunt's outfit as obscene, but in a good way, Hunt thinks simply, quote, he was a stupid fucking animal, but he'd always been a stupid fucking animal around her. And that shows like Hunt is leaning into the veneer and Bryce is still resisting it.
Great point.
Thank you.
In this moment, I thought a lot about how Hunt's sexual desire and his need for Bryce is inextricably linked to his need to protect Bryce as well. We saw it at the ballet in several ways, and we're going to see it in the middle of the book when they board the Omega boat and they eventually have sex. Their first actual sex is because Hunt cannot be controlled because of his need to protect her.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting link to me that I don't think was immediately obvious the first time I read this book. And there's something about the accepting of his veneerness and this animal side that translate to protective.
Yeah.
And no wonder why Bryce resists it, because she's trying to be human.
Well, it's also, yes, everything you're saying to that, yes. Now my feminist lens comes jumping in where I'm like, good point. It's almost like she's pacifying him and his maleness and his veneerness. And I'm wondering now, as we're talking it out, that like veneer means male.
And human is female.
In a way, yeah. Because they're like quote unquote weak and stuff.
Right.
But like, I think there's definitely something about veneer being the representation of this like domineering, more masculine energy. Yeah. And Bryce is this like magical veneer, right? So emasculation is like a stupid concept. But I can understand where Hunt is like you said, the first time they have sex, he's so wound up because he couldn't protect her. And Bryce has to pacify him in a way of like, okay, well, you can essentially like show your dominance in this very sexy way. Look, this is not me poo-pooing on it. I'm a big fan of this, but I'm just, we're analyzing the text. We get Hunt's point of view on their whole no sex agreement. Quote, he'd agreed because what else is he going to do? And this is like literally their entire relationship. Like Hunt agrees because he's like, fine. But like also that's such a guy answer where it's like no sex. And like, what is he going to do? Be like, please?
Yeah.
Can we please? What if it's just the tip? JTT.
And, but like, so it's like the right answer, but it's very sulky, very male.
Yeah.
And like very much like he doesn't necessarily get to do his own desires and stuff, but he also sees what Bryce is doing in a different point of view.
Yeah.
Quote, he knew more lay behind it, knew it likely had something to do with the guilt she harbored for the thousands of people who hadn't been saved that day. And again, like, I think he does get Bryce's choices. I think he just doesn't like it.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. Let me take it one step farther. Quote, never mind that he'd come home from the comitium that night planning to seduce Quinlan within an inch of her life. She needed time to sort it out, and Hunt would give it to her. Anything Bryce wanted, anything she needed, he'd gladly give it to her. And while we all want the hot, steamy sex, let's remember Bryce is 25. Hunt is 237.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head. I think that's right. And giving her time and space is the right thing to do.
Yes.
This sacrifice of time should be small for someone who is immortal.
Yeah.
So he is doing the right thing. He's being sulky about it. I can't blame him, but I also can't. But also, like, come on, Hunt.
Yeah, like, you don't get points.
Yeah.
For respecting her wishes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I get the slight sulkiness, like, I really wanted to have sex. But, like, at the same time, you don't get brownie points.
Yeah. He would have gotten points if he had suggested it first.
Yeah, exactly. And this is just a friendly reminder. Blue balls do not exist.
No.
Guys who try to be like, it really hurts, I need to do something. Ugh,
they can go take care of it themselves.
They can go take care of it. They don't exist. And if anything, we should rejoice in their pain.
They need to be in pain more.
Yeah, I don't. It's funny because it's like, I don't hate men. Like, big fan.
Yeah.
Would love to have one.
Yeah.
I would like to take one for their forever home. I would love to adopt a guy romantically. But I just wanted to point out, like, I don't hate men. I
know you don't.
Yeah. Well, in case they don't know. Like,
as if they're listening.
Yeah, in case they're listening. Bryce opens up more about her struggles with people having fun, and she asks Hunt, quote, this doesn't disgust you? He says, why would it disgust me? Because you've seen all of the shit that's happened in the world and been treated like dirt, and these people, a lot of them have no idea or don't care. And her question puts the ownership onto Hunt. It's not like a real question necessarily. It's just more of like, doesn't this disgust you? It's like, I don't know, my like lame comparison is like, you like pizza. Right? Like, it's amazing because you like pizza. Like, it doesn't necessarily give wiggle room there. But like, I think Hunt is able to give a really well articulated answer. And I think it shows, though, that Bryce doesn't want to have ownership over her own struggles alone. She doesn't want to be experiencing the same pain alone.
Yeah, because to be alone in those types of feelings is scary, right? And she's come from a place where Hunt has always understood her to now, does Hunt and understand me? Yeah. I want to continue that train of thought. Quote, I want to feel normal, but then I feel guilty about that, and then I get mad at all these people who don't care enough to feel guilty. So this takes me back to her conversation with her mom. Yeah. About, like, what do you want me to do? Go back to Nidaros and be normal? Yeah. And pretend? Yeah. She has this really complex inner conflict that she does want to be normal. She wants everything to be like it was before hell broke loose. But it's not possible. And, on one hand, her desire to be normal explains why she likes Hunt's hat and why she focuses on dancing, and her desire to hang out with Ruhn at his parties, even though people stare at her. Like, normalness is important, but at the same time, to feel normal is to reject what's happened to her, which is why she feels guilty. Yeah. And it's also to reject all the lives that were ruined by what happened.
That's some classic PTSD.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side, accepting what happened and accepting that things are not normal is to accept her new life and her status as Vanir. Yep. She doesn't want that either.
She's going to have to pick something.
Yeah. Yep. And she will eventually.
Yeah. Hunt expresses, quote, I prefer to see people enjoying their lives, and you can't assume that because they're here, it means they don't care. Sometimes people need stuff like this to feel alive again, to find a kind of release.
Hunt understands a bit more because he's older, obviously, but their dynamic is different. It's not a power dynamic. It's not necessarily like, he has a power over her, but it's a perceived power because it's a power of knowledge. It's a power of handling things. And he is more equipped in this post-war trauma, even though he still has trauma. It's not like he's fine or anything, but like he is a little bit more equipped than her. And that, therefore, is a power difference.
Yeah.
Because he's able to like move forward and she's struggling. And it's about, and it's kind of like a competition between these two. Like, not a competition, but like they're busy trying to keep up with one another.
Yeah.
And Bryce says, quote, "Sometimes I catch myself enjoying a moment and worry I'm enjoying it too much, He says, "I know the feeling. It's going to take time to adjust." It is like, it just takes time. And that's something that she is new to.
Yeah. And I think it also reminds me of the stages of grief.
Yes.
And I think, in a lot of ways, Bryce is grieving her humanity and grieving the life she had before Micah showed up.
Yeah.
And maybe this is the first time she's really had to go through that process.
Yeah.
Other than Danica.
Absolutely.
But it's different, right?
It's an extreme thing. Like every single aspect of her life has changed.
Yeah.
So where Bryce and Hunt start to differ, though, is their dynamic with the Asteri. Hunt is content with the situation. Quote, "The bright hand of the Asteri would kill everyone Bryce and Hunt cared about if they stepped out of line. So lying low it would be." Hunt is happy to stay where they are and have freedom, understandably. Like, I can't pretend that I would be like, all right, well, time to bring them down. I'd be like, you know what? Life's not bad. Let's just continue.
Yeah.
Because Bryce has never lost like he has, she's willing to risk it all.
Yep. Which is the greatest point of tension for them.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think this brings them to two different planes of existence. Like, they can be in the same space, but on different planes. Hunt is really excited to be free, as you said, and he has an eternity to spend with Bryce from his point of view. While he does like fear it being taken away, and he's afraid for Bryce's safety all the time, he just wants to make the most of the moment.
Yeah.
And that's reflected in his, like, I just like seeing people feel alive. That's what he wants too. I mean, the man can't stop thinking about sex despite Bryce being in this weird, like, mental place.
Yeah, he's like, you are so depressed.
But I still want to bone
horny.
you.
I'm so horny for you.
I just can't stop imagining it.
She looks so beautiful as she cries.
It's not what he does. Bryce, on the other hand, unlike Hunt, who is free, is trapped in her trauma from Earth and Blood and trapped in her new position as a Starborn princess. She longs for the version of herself before Hell's invasion. As long as it's the healed version of her. It's almost like she's looking at the past with rose-tinted glasses. Because it's not like her normal before Hell was a good normal.
No, she was quite depressed. I think she's forgetting this. I think she's forgotten where she was.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I do believe that they want similar things, obviously. They want to be together. However, they are starting from very different places. Hunt is way up here. Bryce is way down below. And it makes sense why there's going to be so much tension in this book and the next book, because they have to come to a middle ground.
Yeah.
And they're really far away from that middle ground right now.
Some might say they may never find that middle ground and he just has to suck it up, Buttercup, and go to her ground.
We'll see. I mean, we haven't analyzed Flame and Shadow. We've only read it once.
No, yeah. There's so much room.
She might be dragging him by his hair.
Yeah.
To the middle ground.
Sometimes people need to be dragged by their hair.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So I'm going to go on a quick rant, like 5-second rant. Quote, "Fury wouldn't keep her word. Whoever she answered to, whatever valuable clients she served, would likely hear before dawn." Who Fury? Who Fury? Who? Okay, that's all.
I understand.
Start of the struggle with Bryce and their dynamic is when there being Bryce and Hunt is after finding out about Celestina is taking over from Micah. And Hunt is a total pessimist. He's worried. He's just like, this is going to be horrible. I hate it. She's probably a bitch. I don't want to. Understandably.
Yeah.
Bryce, though, her response to that is to tell him that she'll protect him. I am going to have so much fun analyzing this book because there's a lot of like male feminine roles that are happening. And I think, again, this is a type of sentiment that would emasculate him, that he feels threatened by, that his masculinity isn't enough to protect Bryce. And
he's not actively thinking that out loud. He's not saying those thoughts, but it's about inferring. It's about looking in between the words and looking at the text. And the more she tries to become stronger for him, the more he loses control. Yeah. And needs to exert his own power.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Even as Hunt thinks about her power, Hunt thinks, quote, Hunt still had trouble fathoming that female standing beside him had become more powerful than the Autumn King. Hunt's power technically still outranked her and her father's, but with the horn etched into her back, who really knew the depth of Bryce's power? Hunt is used to being the muscles, right? He's used to being the powerful one. Like, he's the one with the big badass power that's, no one angel has ever had this kind of power before. And I'm not saying that he's like jealous of Bryce because now like there's two fancy power people. Yeah. But it's like now we don't know anything about her power. She could be stronger than him. It's the mindset that really dictates him going forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I also want to take a quick moment where even though Hunt is saying all the right things of like people just need to be happy, people need to go what they're going through, he still hasn't figured it out despite 200 and something years. He's still struggling. So his own mental space, quote, he hadn't told her of his nightmares. And it's a much longer quote. It goes into like the way that he saw her die or almost die and fight and everything. And it just shows though that like he's not willing to open up to Bryce. So why would she open up to him about Emile?
Again, it goes back to Sophie Renast.
Yep.
If she can't trust Ophion and Ophion can't trust her, why should we trust her?
Totally. And the question also becomes, do we think Bryce thinks that Hunt is telling her everything? Because Hunt knows, he even says, I know there's something more to it. Yeah. I know she's struggling with this other thing. In Bryce's point of view, she's thinking, well, I tell Hunt things. We talk late at night. We've exchanged all this information. Right. Like, I didn't mention it the second time, but there's a moment in the party where Bryce thinks like, we sit at the tape, we sit up on the roof, we talk for a long time. There's been a lot of conversation. When I'm wondering if the upcoming chapters, I wonder if there's a moment where Bryce is going to be like, well, you never told me what you're feeling. And does that, like Sophie Renast, why would you trust someone who doesn't trust you?
I totally agree with you. I think they are facing this sort of conundrum because look at Ember. Yeah. We just shit on Ember. Yeah. For making it about her. Yep. And putting the weight of her emotions on Bryce. And I bet Hunt sees that, right? And so he is trying his best to avoid being Ember. Yep. Like he is there to help Bryce process and listen and talk about things, but he doesn't want to put the weight of his trauma on her. Yeah. And so it is this really fine balance of he's trying to give her space for her to overcome and process, but because he's not going to therapy, he's not doing the work he needs to do for himself.
No one can save anyone. You can only work on yourselves.
Yeah.
It's, the theme, the song of this book is Who's Afraid of Little Old Me? Like, I just keep thinking of different quotes.
To end on a slightly happy note, because this became very depressing for Bryce and Hunt real fast, I can't forget how genuine that their relationship is, where, when they were dealing with Bryce's star at the ballet, Hunt cracked jokes and, made Bryce laugh. And now that he's worried about Celestina, Bryce is doing the same for Hunt, and he's laughing too. And it's why they're such a good pair. They're, even though they keep things from each other, let's also not forget that this is like a 3-month relationship. Like, they're still very new to the relationship, despite life and death. Yeah. And they pair well, and it's going to take time.
Absolutely. And they're meant to be together. They're mates. Like, it is nice to not have the fact that they've been mated for however long already and stuff, because, like, we do get to see that they are genuinely made for each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is sweet. So now let's get into Breadcrumbs. As a reminder, at the top, we gave you the one warning. Caving and giving you 2. No more warnings for the rest of the season. Spoilers for literally everything. My aggression.
So much aggression.
So this is from the prologue. Sophie mourns that she had
quote, already handed over her comm crystal to command before entering Kavalla, the precious soul line of communication to their most valued spies. It's ironic that the valued spy, Daybright, is Lydia and has to kill Sophie. Well, I mean, it's also like just a clue, of what's to come.
In the prologue describing Lydia, quote, a silver torque glimmered against her neck, symbolism for a collar and how she's being forced to do what she does.
Still in the prologue, quote, the Hind still lounged like a queen. The Hind is a stag, like King Brannon, Aelin's ancestor, was depicted as a stag. And Aelin, Lydia's ancestor, was queen. She's royalty.
Just, now that we know.
Now that we know. She is a queen.
It.
Yep.
Sophie's kind, quote, had been hunted to extinction by the Asteri centuries ago because of that mighty, unconquerable gift. It's a clue that, the draining power that we see Sophie do, specifically First Light, must be the Asteri's downfall.
Yeah.
Since they annihilated everyone.
Yep. The power to suck all of the energy and First Light from the Omega ships looks like wings under the water, which someone compares to angels. Potential clue regarding Hunt's origin, maybe?
The Hind, quote, pulled a small white stone from her pocket, lifting it for Sophie to see, and then chucked it into the water. Lydia was trying to signal that she's a spy with a comm crystal. It's supposed to help Ophian find her when she drops it in the water, just like Lydia does for Bryce and company later in the book.
Mm-hmm.
But like them, Sophie doesn't realize.
Yep. At the end of the prologue, quote, frigid water hit Sophie like a bomb blast, just like how Cormac is gonna die at the end of the book. Poor Mac Daddy.
In chapter 1, quote, a towering statue of Luna aiming her bow toward the heavens, 2 hunting dogs at her feet, and a stag nuzzling her hip. Some have theorized Luna represents the god Diane in Throne of Glass.
Mm-hmm.
Because she also has a bow. Makes sense then why a stag is at her hip.
Yep.
What if Luna, as a god of the Fae, represents Ruhn and the stag is Lydia? The 2 hunting dogs can be Tristan and Declan.
I love that. I love it. Also in chapter 1, quote, Bryce had no idea where the sorceress had spirited off the Parthos books, one of the few remnants of the human world before the Asteri arrived. Just putting it out there that we should have guessed that Jespa was from Parthos all those years ago, given with the way that she guards those books.
It was there. SJM wrote it.
The whole time.
In chapter 2, quote, being in charge of himself, his future, the Asteri could take it all away again if they wished to. And they do.
Yeah, a little foreshadowing there.
Yep.
Chapter 2, Hunt, quote, still had a fucking knot in his chest. Celestina could make life very difficult for us. And she does. She does.
Ruhn has to chew off his hand.
Because of her?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because she rats them out. Yeah. I'm not saying that it was a funny scene. It was a funny scene.
Also disgusting.
Yeah, I couldn't take it seriously. Also, Ruhn doesn't chew his hand off. Someone chews Ruhn's hand off for them.
Oh,
for
that's
him.
right. That's right.
Which makes it funnier. All right.
Still in chapter 2, quote, but with the horn etched in her back, who really knew the depths of Bryce's power? No one. Until Flame and Shadow.
Mm-hmm. And finally, in chapter 2, Hunt thinks of Fury, quote, she was definitely Vanir. Of what breed, what house, Hunt had no idea. Flame and Shadow seemed likeliest, but more than that, he couldn't guess. Like Amryn? The fact that she looks like Amryn? And we never get the nature. We never get the nature of either. And Fury looks like her. Like, why bring this up? Why bring this up to never talk about it?
Never.
Ever. Are we getting back?
It's going to come in, House of Many Waters.
Or it comes in the next ACOTAR book. It's just bullshit.
It's, yep. We just have to trust that SJM's going to bring it up eventually. So, Jack.
Yeah.
Do we believe...
I didn't realize I was answering this. This makes sense. Shit. Go ahead.
Do we believe the transition from Earth and Blood to Sky and Breath?
Yeah. Thanks for listening to this week's episode.
Explain more.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, this feels like the easiest jump from one book to the next.
I think compared to when you compare it from like ACOTAR or Throne of Glass, even though I have zero memory of Throne of Glass, but if you compare these other ones, I know there was a lot of like people saying like, you know, Farah doesn't make sense from book 1 to book 2. There was a lot more discord there. I don't hear that discord in this situation. What I do hear is that the problems that they struggle with is like Bryce's decisions at the end, what Hunt decides. Like those are the things that people struggle with. If we pay close attention to the jump from book 1 to 2, then those choices make sense.
Right, because the groundwork's already been laid.
Yes.
Everything that happens in Flame and Shadow, the way Bryce acts and the way Hunt reacts is already showing up here.
Yeah. It's showing up from Flame and Shadow. It's showing up with the way that Bryce hides it from Emile, like hides Emile from Hunt.
Yeah.
Like there's so much that these 3 sections, these 3 chapters, right? Prologue 1 and 2. It is laying the groundwork of they're damaged. They will not trust one another. There's a lot of things already getting in their way. And everything else that's about to come makes sense to me.
Yeah. And it makes sense that they're starting from this place because of the end of Earth and Blood.
Yep.
You know, if Bryce and Hunt had met any other way and Earth and Blood had never happened, Micah had never happened.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be much different, to be honest.
Yeah, it'd be a different power dynamic. It'd be a different thing. It wouldn't be as extreme. It'd be like, who does the dishes? But like, you know, why won't you let me hang this for you? It is very much who they are, and like it's very natural and couple-ish, but also like very to the times 1,000 in life and death situations. But I feel like these first 3 chapters, no one's questioned. I mean, at least what I've heard. I've never heard be like, wow, this doesn't make sense that they're starting from here.
Yeah.
In case you have, you know, hopefully this answers it. But like these 3 chapters, pay so close of attention to them because that makes sense for all these other things.
Yeah.
It's the perfect bridge.
It really is. And if, again, I want to go back to the fact that Bryce and Hunt have known each other for all of 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Let's say 6 months max.
Still not much. And then, like, this book happens in a very short amount of time. And then Flame and Shadow happens immediately thereafter and is only 2 weeks long. They're not even, I hate the fact that it's 2 weeks long. It makes me so mad.
It's a fortnight.
It's, all right, that's the only thing I'll forgive. But it is very frustrating where this, like, to think that at the end of Flame and Shadow, it's probably not even been a year.
Right.
You know, I feel like also SJM heard from a lot of people and other writing that the characters ended up together too soon, or like they don't know each other. And maybe she didn't hear that. Maybe that's her own writing. Maybe she sat there and was like, you know what, I really want characters that take the time to get to know each other.
Yeah.
But the more you get to know someone, the more you kind of get to predict what they're going to react.
Yeah.
Which is why they react. I think Bryce and Hunt react to the way that they predict the other's going to react.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And let's be real. I think Hunt and Bryce and Hunt, are the most realistic couple that she's ever written.
Yeah.
Like, this type of conflict and tension that we're going to see over the course of this book and next book, granted, high stakes, but that type of tension is normal in an early relationship.
Absolutely.
I believe it all.
I believe it. Also, I'm not including Bryce-isms. I think she's got a lot of shit she's going to work through.
She's poor Bryce.
Poor Bryce. But, you know, my nails are still red.
I meant to paint my nails red today.
Oh,
I didn't have time.
I'm 6 months strong.
Good job.
Now I'm just like doing it out of sheer stubbornness.
Nice. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Next week, we will be exploring chapters 3 through 9 of House of Sky and Breath.
We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode or on a Patreon exclusive episode.
If you are enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo.
Bye.
Bye. Try it again.
Bye. I'm sorry I failed you.
It's okay. I failed the first time. Can we do it again?
Bye.
Okay. We've never looked at each other this much during a recording. Like, as in the past.
Yeah.
We've always had more things blocking us.
Yeah, it's true.
Wow. Adjust my already. First adjustment of the season.
Documented.
I know. Luckily, you can't really see my leg, which is nice.
Yeah. Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.